So I turn my podcast on, turn the volume up, push play to hear what these dudes will say. 'Cause for romance now I know that there are only hope.
Well, happy days are here again. Welcome to another exciting episode of A Talk to Remember. Man, let me introduce the other host. We have the one and only Taylor, the man, Anthony, who is doing our producing all the way from, where are you from?
Under the sea, obviously, here in Nashville.
Under the sea from Nashville. And then we have all the way sitting right next to Taylor Anthony, Mr. Mikey Blake.
That's a great intro. Thanks, man. Thanks.
And of course, we cannot forget the one and only Bibbidi Bop Bradley Tiddly Poon from Arkansas.
Thank you. I ordered my TV Couples Draft Championship belt from Amazon the other day, so maybe hanging on a wall back behind my screen next time, just in case anyone was wondering.
And I think this is our last Zoom, so.
I guess we still have one more that we have to introduce, and he's also going to tell us the name of this movie because I can't remember it. It is Nathan McDowell from Arkansas. Oh, there's a fish.
What?
That was incredible.
That was good.
Great job,
good.
Brandon.
So, Me Before You, is that the name of it?
That's it.
Yes, sir.
Nice.
That's what we're doing. It's something, y'all. It is something. That's the one thing I know about it. Taylor, while we're kind of leading off here, if you want to get that poster ready.
I've got it ready.
Oh, okay. Well, should we just jump right in?
Can we break the ice with something fun before we do this?
Go for it. What do you got for us? Anything?
Man, I'm gonna be honest. I was thinking about this today. We were driving to get my son's participation trophy in Tots, and I thought, man, this is a really good way to start out this episode since it's kind of a downer movie, and I have since forgotten. So I got nothing.
Well, y'all, it would have been hilarious. So let's jump right in. Taylor, put that. Okay, there's the poster, and I'll go first, just because I know I'm not going to contribute much to this segment. I looked at this poster. I could not be clever for anything. I looked at it before we watched the movie, and the best that I could do, I knew that this was another movie. It was a British movie. I thought maybe he's like a paralyzed James Bond, because that kind of looks like what they're going for here. So that's the best I had. That's the best I could give you guys. Maybe this was like a paraplegic James Bond film. Nate, what do you think?
Interesting. Well, so in the last movie we did, not the last movie, in About Time, the lady in the red dress was getting married. And so I did know, just based off of the little bit of reading that I did, that this guy was in a wheelchair. And so I thought this was their wedding day, I guess. I mean, that doesn't give you a ton. That doesn't give you a ton of to play with there.
What are you thinking, Brandon?
So, you look at this movie poster and you think, one, wow, red dress, off to a great start. So I did think wedding because I thought, they're both dressy and her hair is up. Women wear their hair up in wedding times. They very rarely wear it down. It's just amazing. I've noticed that. I've been to a lot of weddings. But it's not her wedding because what do women wear at weddings? A white dress. And that is red. I definitely saw that difference. So I just thought, hey, they're at a wedding together and they were just a wedding date and they were having a great time. And you can tell that this is just going to be a really just straightforward blossoming romance.
Okay. Two weddings.
Rachel McAdams wore a red dress in her wedding, though.
She did.
Yeah, About Time.
Brandon, have you been in many weddings, like as a groomsman or best man?
I've been in 10.
You would make an incredible groomsman or best man. I could just picture you just killing that role.
Thank you so much. I almost fainted one time when I was on. I had to Tebow actually because my legs locked, and the guy behind me said, "Hey, Brandon, you're about to faint, so you just need to Tebow it." But other than that, I've not been bad.
Mikey, what about you? What's been the greatest role you've played in a wedding?
So in college, I had a buddy named Jared Patrick.
Okay, sorry, I thought you were going to talk about another. What's my favorite role of yours
in a wedding?
You were in? Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So there was a wedding that I was in, not too awful long ago, where I was an usher, and I didn't know that I was gonna be, but I just did it because I needed to fill the void. But they gave me one of those trains that you kind of roll out for the person to walk down. And I'm going to be 100% honest with anyone listening to this. This is not the first time that I've struggled with one of those things. They have been my demise for years. So we start unrolling it and we get up there and we got about 12 feet left to go. So I don't really know what to do. So I just kind of throw it up on stage and walk away. And that's what Nate's thinking of, I'm sure.
Yeah.
To give y'all context for that wedding, I was the best man in that wedding, and I also decorated it. I strung 10 balloons at different sizes all throughout. Nathan also officiated that wedding. That was a real humdinger.
That was a fun day.
First and last time I'll ever decorate a wedding. I'll tell you that much.
You did
Bradley,
fine, man.
My favorite. So Mikey's like, dude, what do I do with this train? Like, what am I supposed to do? And I was like, man, you got to keep going. Like it's an insult if you don't roll it out all the way. And I mean, this thing had to be a mile long. Yeah. Like it was 5,280 feet long. And he just kept, I was like, no, you got to keep going. Keep going.
I felt like a distraction.
Good times. Hey, it was not at all. It made my time.
There's our lighthearted opening right there.
That's what we got needed.
There.
Nailed
we got there. All right. Brad, we're not done, Taylor.
We weren't done.
No.
Just me was done?
Yo, you can leave it. I mean, is it just me?
Yeah.
Am I it?
You're it.
Sometimes people leave very little to the imagination, and so that is where we're at. She deeply cares for a man who is in a wheelchair, and we're about to see how she puts herself before him in some way. Really, no mystery in my end.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think, we've got it. There's a lot of movie to talk about here. So let's just jump right into it. Taylor, take it away.
I'm super ready. Okay. William Will Traynor is a successful banker and active man who is in a good relationship with his girlfriend, Alicia. One morning, while they are in bed, Will gets a call telling him to come into work. While walking to work, he is talking on his mobile phone and inadvertently walks in front of a speeding motorcycle. As a result of the accident, Will is paralyzed from the neck down and permanently bound to a motorized wheelchair.
And there we are, folks. The movie instantly opens up on sandwiches. Right from the get-go, that's the first thing we see. Then he goes to work, he gets hit by a biker, and then we go straight to medieval times with castles and everything else shining everywhere. So, Brandon, when we talk medieval, we got to talk to you, man. What did you think about this opening?
I love castles. Here's the thing. Castles are great. I love the green grass. I thought we were in Ireland. Apparently we were in Britain, which is still great. But I just love them. It just reminds you of the round table, the sword and the stone. I thought this movie is going to be incredible. And in fact, it only got better when you met the main woman. Oh boy. Yep. And so that's all I have to say about that.
He's playing a video game as he's doing this, and he's very distracted by it. And so I just wanted everyone else to know that when he says things that don't make sense, that's what's going on.
It's called the fishy game. Can I share the screen?
Do it. Share your screen.
Okay, I've got eaten. Okay, so I'm playing. Hopefully I don't get eaten by the time I share it.
So professional. So professional.
So here's you see it. You basically, if y'all want to play this, it's a lot of fun. And by eating other fish, you get bigger. So I get a little bigger right there. Yeah. I'm going to quit sharing now.
What? Oh.
I think you died.
I got eaten again. This is so frustrating. I've been trying to beat this for like 5 days.
He said, I'm going to quit sharing. He did not say I'm going to quit playing.
No, he's not going to quit playing.
Sure.
I'm going to try for 2 minutes to stop.
All right, Nathan, Bradley, what do y'all think about this opening?
Go ahead. The only quick observation is about time, and in this one, I just thought to myself, how much more attractive would I be if I had that accent? it's got to go up at least 2 or 3 points, right? Like if
Yeah.
I'm
Very
like a
attractive.
6, you go from a 6 to an 8 pretty quick with an English
It's
accent.
true.
I would say. And so
Maybe you should start using one, Brandon.
Here's the thing. What Bradley has on me is Bradley, if he was British, then he also would be British and tall. And tall men always get the women. So good job, Bradley. You really did it.
thank you. I did it. I
Always.
definitely did.
I want to offer a rebuttal.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, it's a joke. Man, I'll be honest. That first paragraph's pretty straightforward.
There's
there wasn't
not
a
much
ton.
there. Yeah.
I did think that so when he went to grab the helmet and she like his boo called out like, "Hey, no, it's raining or it's really wet. Don't do that." I thought, "Oh boy, he's gonna take it anyway." But he didn't. Instead, he got hit by a person on a motorbike.
Talk about
It started really quick. A lot of you didn't. It built up a very small amount, even for the girl too. But like their situations
true.
were made known very fast. So
There's it. Let's move along, Taylor. Let's get something with some depth here, man.
2 years later, Louisa Lou Clark is a happy, outgoing woman who lives with and supports her working class family. After losing her job at a local cafe, she is hired as a companion for Will Traynor. Lou has no experience, but Will's mother believes her cheery personality will help lift his spirits. Will only spends time with his nurse Nathan, who knows that he will never regain use of his body due to the damage to his spinal cord. Nathan assists him with everything physical like movement, exercise, and clothing.
So Lou is the quirkiest, happiest person I've ever seen in a movie. Like, it's like she stepped straight out of a cartoon. She dresses like a Taylor Swift album cover or like a Saturday Night Live character. Like, everything about her just feels so over the top. But I liked her. I don't know about you guys, but I thought I liked that character. So yeah, and then whenever she worked for him, I kind of got this feeling when she took that job. Now I know we're skipping over her working at the bakery or cafe or whatever. Maybe we'll jump back. But there was a brief period where I thought this is going to be like a modern telling of like a Beauty and the Beast. Is what I thought this was going to be, like flipped on its side. So that was my note.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I'll speak a little bit not about the plot. I thought, and you kind of spoke briefly on this, Brandon, the landscape and the colors in the first couple of scenes were really cool. Like she was wearing a bunch of bright colors, and I feel so strange talking about that, but it like made me notice. You know, typically in Britain it's raining a lot and it's just very gray, but it was, the grass was very lively. So I noticed the colors and the landscape, and I was like, man, all right. This is a cool time to be in England.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that, and we'll get into it. It's a heavy movie, right? I mean, there's a heavy plot overhanging the whole thing, and yet I do think Lou does a great job of being genuine and providing some lighthearted moments and some awkward things without trying super hard and making it weird. Like you said, Mikey, she's very likable.
Mm-hmm.
She's very genuine, and all the quirks really work for her and her relationship with Will.
Now I watched it with Brandon. I was going to pull you in case you were playing that game.
Oh, thanks, man. Hey, I did want to speak about old Lou, okay? One, she's the underdog. She's at that cafe. She's bebopping around. And lo and behold, she gets laid off, you know? And I just love her smile. It is a wonderful smile. It is an inviting smile. She's got nice little eye wrinkles that really just invite you in. I love Lou. I think she's incredible. And she's just so happy. I wish there were more happy people. So it's just fun to have some whimsical characters in there, and she's great, and I'm a big fan. So that's just all I wanted to say.
Well, now, before you stop, she also needed to get a job for her family, and I didn't know this, but we love to talk about dads in this, and Brandon was a fan of her dad from the minute he came on screen, because I guess he's in something else you watch, right?
Yes, he is. He is in Downton Abbey. He is the crippled man, or the lame man in Downton Abbey, and I love this character. He's always in turmoil. He has a nice wife named Anna in the show Downton Abbey, and it is a real struggle for their family in the show. They go through some real hardships, but he comes out on top. I think he's a real humdinger of a guy.
So if you've listened in the past, it doesn't matter how he is in this movie. Brandon loves him from this moment on because he remembers him from another movie. So Just wanted to throw that out there.
You know, they say that leadership, 80% of it is transferable. So 80% wise, he could be right.
You're going to see another character though that he was really awesome in another awesome movie series, and he sucks. So we'll learn about him later.
Well, I think we can introduce him. Like, it may not have mentioned his name, but that's kind of happened before she even got the job.
So, I feel like I'm over talking everybody, but here's the thing. I love wizards, and we all know that, so I'm not going to, beleaguer that point.
What was that now? You're not going to what?
I will not beleaguer it. There will be no more leaguers beings.
Is that a thing?
Beleaguer. It's in the web. But I'm going to keep going. So, in Harry Potter, he's a kind of a misfit wizard. He's, his name is Neville Longbottom. Super forgetful. And Neville flippin' Longbottom is in this movie. And he shows up and he's running around and he is Lou's boyfriend. And I was so pumped because I will say this. He looked great in this movie. He's been working out like a champ. But I was so pumped. There was a wizard in this movie. There was a castle. I thought there's hope. There's so much going right. I don't know how anything could go wrong. So I start off on a big Neville love train. So
there's Brandon.
We need like a Man Crush Monday, like like this is the moment when Brandon shows his Man Crush Monday.
Y'all, he hasn't done a lot of that this season. He's pulled back a little bit.
It's because I'm at home and Jeff is right downstairs, everybody. My father. You gotta respect the Jeff. I do like women, but I can appreciate men. I don't know. Let's keep going. No, let's not add that to the vibe. Not in the way that you're thinking.
The family dynamics.
Like a brother, and all the men are good too, and so are women. Okay, keep going. Next.
Yeah, keep going.
So I was just to bring up the family dynamic. It's pretty chaotic in that house.
Yes.
Looks like mom and dad, blue collar, just working, hard workers. I'm guessing her older sister, I forget her name. She's got a son, and seems like the son kind of threw a wrench in all her career plans. So she's kind of at home. But it is a cluster in that house.
For
just
sure.
A lot of everybody packed into one little space, and it's clear from the get go that Lou. She's like a source of income as her dad. Everybody's getting laid off, and so her dad also is looking for a job. So her being she was at this cafe for like 7 years.
Sounds
we'll find
like
out.
Yeah.
I remember her in the whole conversation. One of the conversations she has with Will, she says that her sister bet her that she couldn't get a job in 24 hours, and then she got it, and then had the job for like 7 years or something, like 5 years, something like that. But so she's actually working in order to keep her family afloat in this tough time too, which it speaks to her, just a lot of. It just adds a layer of like, man, we can really appreciate this character.
For sure. I mean, I'm good. I think that we've pretty much described.
We gotta get into what happened. I mean, that's a big deal.
We're dancing around it, guys.
We don't need to beleaguer this anymore. So
That's not a word.
good beleaguering, Mikey.
What does that mean? Seriously, am I the only one?
It means to lay siege to.
It means to beleaguer it. Let's get on with the story. Our listeners are getting bored. Sorry.
Let's go.
Oh man,
Is that me?
Yeah.
Okay. Cynical and depressed because he can no longer live an active life, Will initially reacts coldly to Lou's upbeat demeanor and treats her with contempt. After 2 weeks, Will has a visit from his former best friend Rupert and Will's now ex-girlfriend Alicia, who reveal that they are engaged. Will manages to smash all the photographs on his dresser in anger and indignation, which Lou tries to repair the next day, leading to a verbal altercation between the two. The next day, Will orders Lou to watch a film with subtitles with him, and she has to accept it. The two begin to bond and eventually become close friends. Lou and Will continue to talk every day. She learns that he is cultured and worldly, having traveled extensively. In contrast, her life so far has been simple, without many interests or hobbies or travel away from home. Her long-term boyfriend, Patrick, is trained to take part in a Viking triathlon in Norway, a hobby that he often chooses over spending time with her. Will urges Lou to broaden her horizons and tells her that it's her responsibility to live her life as fully as possible.
All right.
Here we go.
That was, now we've got a lot we can talk about. First thing comes first to my mind when he read that, because I don't even think I caught it when I watched it. But I guess British movies like hate people named Rupert. Like they just make those the worst guys. Like they're always the worst. So if your name's Rupert and you're from England, man, I feel for you.
Yeah. Hey, and I'll just say, like, from the so this is a really tough situation, obviously, really heavy, but it's clear from the get-go, Lou is desperate for a job, and this one pays well, and so she's like, hey, I'm going to do anything to make this work. But it is clear, like, from day one, she's in over her head. Like, there's a whole binder full of, like, things she's got to take care of. There's a huge medicine cabinet that she's, and there's all these, I mean, it's clear that she's kind of in over her head. But I this was the moment when I thought, okay, what's going to be, like, what is going to happen? What's going to be the thing that makes Will break for her? Like, what? Because he's very cold, very like, I don't want anything to do with you. I don't want anything to do with anybody. But what's going to be, it's probably going to be her quirkiness, which is obviously they sell that over the top. But and then we get to that scene where his ex and his best friend come in, and whew, that's tough.
Yeah. And so even through all this, like when she first meets him and his mom introduces him, like I still felt like this could be that Beauty and the Beast. Like there were so many parallels until there's not anymore, but they're like, it felt like that's kind of what they were doing. And the whole time too, like I'm trying to find this, what is me before you? Like I'm looking for that through the whole movie. And so when the friends get introduced, I'm wondering, because this was his girlfriend, like the girl that shows up. I'm wondering, is me before you? Like I quit on you before you can on me. Then in that moment, I thought, okay, is that going to be like kind of foreshadowing of this is what this guy does? And so I took that away, because that was a tough scene to watch. I mean, it's just rough.
Well, and I think what makes it hard is like you want to be really pissed at the girl, and you are, but then she's like, where she walks out, Lou's giving her a jacket, and she's like, I tried for months. And he wouldn't let, so you, like, it's like you want to be really ticked off at her for like being superficial, but really, it seems like Will was kind of resolute and made up his mind that he's, just going to go on being like, he's not going to try and hold anybody back and not going to let anybody in.
100%. Brandon?
Yeah. It's just pretty easy to see that defeated was the word that I used for him pretty much up front. It shows us later that he was a daredevil. He was very skilled in a lot of things physically. Obviously, he was really skilled in the business world, so he just had everything going for him. And when everything gets taken away, except for your capacity to think about what's been taken away, instead of, and we didn't see probably those 2 years of him going through all that, but right now he's defeated. He's emotionless, or really tries to be, and just dealing and coping with his pain that way. And you see, Lou come in and almost like a refusal to admit defeat in this area. She wants to bring life. She wants to bring some happiness and joy. And so she tries to start, and that's almost the theme of the movie. She just starts throwing stuff out until something sticks. And at first it's super awkward. But then slowly but surely she'll creep in and begin to loosen up some of those tough edges in his life. So it was good. I mean, yeah, you feel a lot of things
for sure
this entire movie.
Well, and something that's interesting, because I do come to like old whatever his name was, the quadriplegic young man. But I love that Lou gets in there. It's like, hey, can I make you a pot of tea? Like, tea is super soothing, and I just love that trait about her. And I also, thought it was really funny that he's just sitting in his room, and you can tell he's just out of it. He's just listening to his music. It's kind of like this crazy, weird dance techno music. It's kind of like the stuff I listen to on my drive home from work. But you can tell that kind of symbolizes where he's at when he's listening to this terrible, crazy pop dance music.
Yeah. And another thing that like I put, so the scene where they leave, the boyfriend or the new fiance and the ex-girlfriend, and he breaks the pictures. So the next day, or maybe it's even later that day, she's fixing the pictures and he comes out. And it's that moment that you have in every like will they, won't they movie where it's like, no one's ever talked to me like that before.
Yeah.
And so that moment finally hits in that moment. And then he invites her in for a French film with subtitles. I'd quit the job before I would sit down and watch that thing. There's no chance. But here's where he got me. And I just wanted to throw this out there. He was talking about things that he loves and the movies, and he talked about the French stuff and he talked about others, but he said, I have a soft spot for Armageddon too. And I'm here to tell you folks, I hate movies about space, but that movie is so dang good. So he won so many points for me when he talks about, well, that was the first connection I felt was the Armageddon love. So just wanted to get that out there.
I thought it was, I mean, he was clear, like from the get-go, he was really hard. And then he slowly began to open up, which on an acting perspective, we'll get to this much later in the end, but I thought he was phenomenal. And
for sure.
Not only was he playing a quadriplegic, but he's legitimately like the character, journey that he goes on from being so cold and so harsh to, as we see him kind of open up a little bit was cool. But one of the things I wanted to comment on, I wonder, like, remember how he was going to grab that helmet and he was going to ride the bike that day?
Right.
Like, I wonder if he would have been, well, I don't know, not so much, but like just the irony of how he got hit by a motor. Like, you just never hear that. Like, you never really hear someone getting hit by a motor vehicle. And I just wonder how, like, the irony of that moment, how it played into like just where his head was as a character. Man, I got really distracted.
Oh, you and me both.
Another character we haven't talked about is Nathan, the nurse.
So good.
Who's great. He's I love the steady, constant people in movies, and Nathan really is that. I was kind of expecting him to throw a wrench into something, like him be kind of a bad guy, but he never was. He was just loyal. He'd been there the whole 2 years that prior, and so Nathan's a character that's pretty prominent throughout this thing as well.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about him as much, but yeah, you're right. He's just fantastic. I don't feel like he ever steals a scene, but like he's perfect in everything he's in. Like it was a great addition. Like really, really good.
And then we meet Patrick. We haven't really talked about him a ton. I know Mikey or Brandon briefly introduced him, but
yeah.
I mean, from the get-go, it's clear they want you to think of this dude as a schmooze, as a total douchebag, right? Is that did y'all get the same vibe?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to copy that. That's all I'm going to say.
He had that young entrepreneur of the year. I mean, just
a running jersey.
What in the world? Like, what? Yeah, that was ridiculous. But I mean, it's clear in this moment. You're like, okay, so Lou is going to have to choose between Will and Patrick at some point in some way.
And I hate that because, I mean, he inherently wasn't a bad guy. He was just kind of selfish. Like, he loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's just in an impossible situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's impossible to win.
I'm going to tell y'all something about Patrick, who was Neville Longbottom, because he is. I dislike him. He was no Downton Abbey, the woman, Lou's father. If you're watching this and if you can't watch it, you need to go watch our thing on YouTube. I've got a picture of Neville Longbottom. Look at that kid. Kid's nice. Kid's not afraid to eat some cake and enjoy himself, okay?
You know what I thought that was? I thought that was the kid who the woman was taking away the bacon.
King Curtis.
I can put King Curtis on here in a second. Don't you worry, Nathan. But look, I'm here to tell you, I like to run and be in somewhat of shape, but you know what? You should never get too into it. And I think Neville did, and that's where he lost his way. And honestly, he just wasn't very nice, a little selfish. This guy, man, he was ready to fight people. He was ready to fend off Draco Malfoy. Patrick, he was just going to run to Switzerland or wherever he's going. So I'll take this one.
I'm going to give some pushback, just a little bit. Like, I don't think that he was mean. I just think that he was like he was all about like what he loved. Like, I don't think he ever did anything that was like mean, even to her. Like, I know at one point he called the way she dressed like a leprechaun drag queen. That's funny to me.
That was hilarious, actually.
So I don't think they ever did anything to make him a bad guy. It was just he was into his own things.
They were just wrong for each other. But I mean, I'll be honest. I just like Neville, who had more fun and didn't run all the time and ate chocolate. So that's just how I feel. But I agree, Mikey. You're right. You got a point. So
Yeah.
I recede.
Thank you. Anybody else?
No, we could continue.
All right. Well, before we do, I think it's about that time to figure out what the coffee house has this week. So we'll be right back.
That's the same person.
Hello, Talk to Remember friends. It's me, Haley. I've been on some podcast episodes before. Maybe you remember, maybe you don't. It's okay. But what you probably do remember is the coffee house. We're the sponsors of this podcast. And something that we wanted to let you know, it's super exciting. We're reopening Monday, May 4th. Here's a little information about that. So we will be open to in-dining, limited capacity, but we will also be offering curbside. So just give us a call at the coffee house and tell us you want it curbside, and we'll bring it to you. Look out for some themed drinks that we're going to be doing with the guys from Talk to Remember. Follow us at the Coffee House Franklin on Instagram. Our address is 144 2nd Avenue North. If you get confused, there's a little construction going on. See the construction? You're at the coffee house. That's the coffee house in downtown Franklin.
And we're back. Okay, so we're getting to the point in the movie where we're getting to the meat of it. Things are about to get heavy. They're about to get crazy. But before they do, I think we need to talk a little bit more about the light stuff. So they've watched that movie. She has tried to make him like her. He has given her nothing. She's wanted to go on walks. She's wanted to listen to music, this, that, and the other. He shoots her down every time. They watch this movie, and then all of a sudden he's like, hey, you want to go outside? And so, like, she's kind of winning him over a little by little. Yeah. So does anybody have anything to add to all that?
I was just going to say, I think his this is where his personality kind of shines. Like, he's kind of sarcastic. He gives her a hard time. Like, he's an intriguing character. Like, I really, at this point in the movie, am really liking, what's his name, William?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Will.
Yeah, like, I really like him. I'm like, man, he's kind of funny and witty. And I'm glad that he's starting to see some light in his situation, and he's letting her in a little bit.
For sure. I like them both. I think their personalities mixed well. Like, it was so good. Well. They brought out the best in each other. So, yeah,
that's good. I mean, there's a line, and I don't have the full of it. But at some point, they're outside and they're chatting, and I think even Mom like overhears, like she's like getting the mail, and she like sees them outside, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, they're outside!" And he says a line. I don't know. I can't remember the exact context of it, but I think like they're trying to peg each other for like, "Oh, I know you," like I know that, and he says. You know what? I don't know. I forget exactly how he phrased it, but basically he said, "I see potential in you." Talking to Lou, he says, "But you need to widen your horizon, Clark." And so it's like this moment where he's like starting to be real, starting to open up, and I forget the whole context of that, but I know that line I wrote down.
Yeah, and actually I wrote the second part of that down, which is funny. But from a guy who, like we said, is been a daredevil who has experienced a lot of life, he says you have a lot of potential, you got to broaden your horizons, and then he says you only get one life, Clark. It's actually your duty to live it as fully as possible. And so the mention of her potential by several people, and then this line I think is like extreme foreshadowing to what is to come, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think this is a good place to move on, because I think we're about to get into the...
Yeah. Also, real quick on a lighthearted note, right after that, she suggests he needs a shave, and so she shaves his face.
That's right.
And if anyone, I mean, like, I'm going to start shaving my face as slowly, as intimately. I'm going to put some piano music on my phone and just go as slowly as possible and see if that changes the whole mood of my shaving experience, because that was unbelievable.
I had a flashback to the clay scene in Ghost. I was like, why did something just become really, really way more intimate than I expected?
Those blades travel at 0.5 millimeter a second. It was incredible.
Also, I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but after he was like clean shaven, he was like scruffy. It was the weirdest thing in the world. Like he didn't really get full. Like immediately the next scene, he's like, oh, like he's got stubble, and I'm like,
I didn't even catch that.
Yeah. Well, ticky tack. I'm just picking up on all the.
Brandon, anything?
Things.
Oh yeah, dude, crazy scene.
Tell Taylor, take us away.
Thanks, man.
While Nathan takes care of Will during one of his occasional illnesses, Lou notices scars on Will's wrists. Sometime after, Lou overhears an argument between Will's parents and learns that Will has given his parents 6 months before checking into Dignitas in Switzerland for assisted suicide. Will refuses to accept life with a disability that entails dependency, pain, and suffering without any hope for recovery of his old self. Lou then takes it upon herself to change his mind. She organizes various trips and adventures to show Will that life is worth living despite his disability. Will gradually becomes more communicative and open to her plans. Lou, Will, and Nathan attend horse racing, a trip far from perfect. Nonetheless, Lou sways Will into attending a Mozart concert. Will then decides to attend Alicia's wedding and asks Lou to accompany him. At the wedding, Lou and Will enjoy offending the straight-laced guests. Lou learns from the bride's godmother that she considers Will to be Alicia's one that got away.
All right.
Yeah, we need to stop real quick because holy smokes. What's her name again? Lou?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I like red dresses. They are so nice. And what
about if you wear one of those with like red lipstick? What happens then?
Oh, Mikey, I almost forgot. I mean,
red heels.
Red heels. I just love it. It makes the lips just pop like cherries in a cherry pie or cherry on the top of a sundae. It was wonderful. And I say this in the most respectful way. Amelia Clark, if you are that peppy and kind and wonderful and you wear red dresses and red lipstick, I am so in. I don't know what his problem is. Actually, I'm not going to say anything more because I'm going to get myself in trouble. All right. It was nice. Yeah, I've got a weird obsession. And I probably need to dial it back. That's all I wanted to say.
So Brandon took us to the end of the paragraph. If we want to jump back with all the stuff in the middle and the beginning, anybody got anything with all that? A lot happens.
Yeah, and we covered. So the first thing, the segment that I was chewing on was the wrists.
Yes.
That's a yes.
They're scarred. I don't know.
So I did a little research on this.
Good.
This was a book. And from what I read, because I wondered when I saw those, Brandon even brought it up. He's like, oh, I guess he slits his wrists. And I thought, well, how's that even possible? What the book says, and they just don't allude to it in the movie, is in that house he's in, he's found a nail on the wall. And he knows if he just drives by that over and over, it's getting hung up there. So they don't show that at all, but that's where that comes from.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Ooh. Whoa.
Yikes.
I'll be honest. Let's keep talking about the red dress because that is so depressing.
It needs to be talked about. Like
it does. It's interesting because that's one of the few details I actually even noticed. We did have that discussion. So that does clear a lot up.
Yeah, and it's a lot.
It is a lot. It is really heavy.
So at what point, I forget exactly the context. Do y'all remember the context in which he expresses, how does she find out? How does Lou find out about his plans to go to the assisted suicide?
So she does, she's either coming to work or leaving work. And maybe it's after he's been, no, it's not, it's before he's been sick. But no. Okay. So when they go outside, the one time he finally goes outside with her, I guess right after that, he caught the flu or pneumonia or something, and he got really sick. And so she was trying to get a hold of mom, dad, anybody. And then Nathan saves the day. But when she's leaving, she hears mom and dad talking, and they're talking about how it's coming up on the 6 months. And so that's how she hears it for the first time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's clear that like dad, I mean, this is just, I mean, I literally wrote down the word heavy and like wrote down all the things that made this movie so heavy. But it's clear in that conversation, you're right. The dad wants to support Will, and mom doesn't want it. And again, just an impossible position, situation to be in. And then you throw in Lou on the other end, who she wants to, try and win him over by going on all these exotic, or not exotic, but all these fun trips and whatnot.
Well, and you just put yourself in her shoes, and I'm not saying that like this equals out to anything with the end of the movie, but like you take a job, you'd think like she would have been in on that from the get-go. Like, hey, this is super temporary, and this is why. Like, because that's just a lot to learn about somebody like you're developing feelings for, whether they're romantic or not. Like,
right.
It's a tough spot.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, her walking in on that parent argument, it just shows both sides of this spectrum that like is so hard to empathize with, because until you're in it, or unless you've dealt with something so specific, it's hard. But you see one end of the spectrum, like you said, the dad supporting his son's choice and saying like there's probably no changing his mind, but yet a mom fighting for like, hey, that's my son. Like that's he needs to live. Like he doesn't know what he's saying. And I'm not, it's hard because I don't know if you, this is such a polarizing movie because it's like, is that right or wrong? Or is it just two perspectives that some people are going to really take one side or not? And
that had to be Brandon.
We had to see that, like now Lou is going to, she has a timetable, right? And so she has this emergency. And so you have that montage of her studying books, getting ready to see other things that quadriplegics can do. And then she starts diving in and just trying stuff. And so that's, yeah.
And you'd think, like, if you've watched any of the rest of the movie and just what little bit you've learned, because they've done a good job of developing the characters in the short time you've seen it, that Will's just going to want no part of any of this. But he's game. Like, and it's because of Lou. Like, she wants to go to the horse track. You can tell he does not want to go to the horse track. She's like, oh, but Nathan's never been. So he just plays along. He's in. And it's a train wreck. Like, they go, he gets stuck in the mud.
Yeah.
So he has to have these people help him, which just for somebody like him, and I don't mean like in a wheelchair, but just somebody with that mentality.
He's done it all. He's done everything.
Like you can tell that's just so hard for him. And then they go to the restaurant there and they can't get in. Like, it's just all these things that he leaves for the first time and everything's just like a failure. All of it.
Yeah.
And then
the next is the concert, right?
For sure. Yeah.
And is that where she she doesn't wear the red dress there, does she?
Maybe.
She
because
does.
at the end of it, they're in the car and she's like, well, let's go. And he's like,
yes.
No, I just want to sit here with a girl in a red dress. Like, I've just been on a date with a girl in a red dress, which I thought was a classic line. So they go to this Mozart concert and he's like, you couldn't have picked like Jay-Z or something. And she's like, no, I couldn't. And she wanted to go. But then like they end up, it's clear that like, I mean, there was that scene where he's got like that thing jabbing his back and she bites the tag out and the people around her are just like, what is this? And then the concert, he can like see that she's just in it. And he loves that she's into it so much. And then they get home. That's when they get back to the house and she's like, well, let's get you out. And Will's like, no, I just want to,
which is great.
I just want to sit here. Oh, like that's when I was like, man, like this guy really is like, man, he's turning a corner. Like he's really opening up. He said that red dress makes him smile.
Brandon, can you relate to that?
Yes.
Also, when she walks in to pick him up for it, Nathan actually turns and such an English person, he goes, oh, kapow. And he says kapow. And next time my wife and I go on a date night, I'm going to turn and say kapow and see what kind of reaction that gets. Because I just think that's a killer line.
The only thing I decided I want to start calling my cell phone my mobile. Like, I just feel like that's a thing. It needs to happen. So
needs to happen.
One of the things that we did not touch on, and I feel like it may have been covered in this paragraph. I'm not sure. I'll be honest. I don't know when this happens. But so when they're outside earlier, when he goes out for the first time, they're telling stories about each other. And she's talking about how ridiculous she dresses. And she talks about those bumblebee socks. Mm-hmm. And that's big because that's coming back. So we at least need to bring that up. Like she just mentions it in passing and like they don't make them anymore. That's something that you would think would just be a one-off, but that comes back. And so I just wanted to draw a little more to that. So I think
that's a good segue into the birthday, right?
So what's first, the wedding or the birthday?
The wedding.
Yeah.
They go to Alicia's wedding. Alicia and her boyfriend, which again, I mean,
And he was the one that suggested it. He wanted to go, which I could not believe.
But at the same time, like if you've made up your mind or you think you've made up your mind, no spoilers yet, that this is towards the end, like why not? Why not just do it all? Like,
yeah,
I guess, I don't know. Like, yeah, that scene to me I would never go there. I just couldn't. There's nothing that could make me go there.
Man, that was, I got real emotional in that scene when she sat on his lap and he wrote out, one, because it was awesome. But two, thinking out loud was the first dance song for me and my wife. And so I was like, oh, like I just melted. It was a really cool, nostalgic moment.
And it's another one of those moments, kind of going back to what you guys talked about earlier, where he told her she had a lot of potential. Like when they're at the wedding, she's like, hey, if you were still up and at him, you would never even notice a girl like me. And again, he just lets her know like her worth. And so at that point, I'm starting to think, okay, Me Before You this is a movie about how she didn't know who she was till she met him. So that's what I thought Me Before You turned into. I'm still trying to figure it out at this point. But that's when I made that connection. So
I'll be honest. I think this synopsis, I think it's got it backwards. I thought that the wedding was after the birthday. I think Bradley was right. Like from my note, I know it said it differently in the synopsis, and I don't guess it matters all that much because they were shortly thereanafter.
Right.
But I do think that we need to talk about Patrick at the birthday dinner at some point, because that was just another.
So let's go ahead and just jump into the birthday then. So
okay, I think is it in the next paragraph, Taylor?
Yes.
Oh,
okay.
Well, let's move on.
Will joins Lou's family for dinner on her birthday, where they learn that Lou's father has lost his job in a leveraged buyout that happened to have been organized by a younger associate of Will. Shortly thereafter, Lou's father is offered the head of a maintenance job at Stortford Castle, which belongs to Will's family, and Lou realizes that Will is trying to help her secure financial freedom from her family. Gradually, they develop strong feelings for one another, which makes Patrick jealous and causes problems in his and Lou's 7-year-long relationship, eventually leading to their breakup.
Okay, before we get into the birthday, just because I want someone to help me connect the dots, because I didn't catch this. When does she realize he's trying to help her get financial freedom? Because I don't know that I noticed any of that till
it was at the birthday. Like, so I remember I had to rewind it a couple of times because I didn't understand the part. I couldn't hear. But she says something about, or he asks if you know such and such, who was the guy that bought out whatever to where her dad lost a job. And he's like, yeah, I trained him. Like, he trained the guy.
Right, I remember that.
Led to, and I think it was shortly thereafter that they got a job. Remember, she came home and they were all dressed up, getting ready to go out on a date night. That it may have been after the wedding or whatever. I don't know. I don't remember exactly. They're just trying to figure out the timeline.
Like when he would have, because Taylor read it in the sense that Lou figures out she's trying to be set up for financial, like, freedom from her family. But I didn't pick up on that till the moment in the movie where it makes that absolutely clear. So I just didn't know if something happened that I just didn't catch.
Oh, it happened. Yeah, he referenced that in, because she calls him after. She calls him at some point after she found out, and he's like, "Yeah, I did that." She's like, and he says something like, "Well, we own the castle, and we needed a maintenance guy, and so we hired your dad needed a job. We needed a head maintenance guy, so we hired your dad."
I must have missed all of that.
And then that's when she says something like, they had a conversation about it. I remember.
Cool. Yeah, and it's not important. I was just trying to keep up there. But the birthday, she doesn't initially invite Will because she doesn't think he'll come. But then he kind of is like, hey, do you want me there? So he's going to come. The one part I did not like about this was that Nathan drops him off. And then she's like, all right, bye, Nathan. I would have thought they were friends at this point. But hey, whatever. Just get out. So, but this birthday, a lot happens at this birthday. So I'll let somebody else. Brendan, you got anything down there? Since you look like Neville, you want to just talk about this birthday a little bit, or?
I do, I declare. So, hey, they're having a nice time. They're feasting on this wonderful meal. and they're just getting to know. Like they all like the William guy. They're really getting along with him. Well, then Patrick comes in 28 or so minutes late and bursts through the door. He's eating the meal, and you can tell he's threatened. Poor little Neville is very threatened by by William. And here's the thing. I understand why Neville is threatened because she actually likes him more than Neville. And it's actually really obvious at this point in the movie. But you cannot take shots. He takes a couple shots at William and his like him being in a wheelchair. And I just think it's a total low blow. So that's a stinker. And then also when they're giving the gifts, Patrick gives her a kind of a love necklace with his name in it. And
real sweet.
Trying to be tender. I get it. I have tried to give gifts that have not been reciprocated well, and you can tell. But then William gets in there and he gives her the bumblebee socks. And you can tell she lights up like a firefly. She's all fired up. So you can tell, man, there's a connection. And this is where you think, oh, baby, love is a brewing, and we're about to have a romantic stew throughout the rest of this movie. We're finally going to get the redemption we so seek. And it's really exciting. I was really pumped up. And you know what? I got why Patrick was upset, but I just love to dislike him, even though I love Neville. Just not Patrick.
Well, and so when she gets those socks, you can see that on Patrick's face too. Like that's the moment where I think that even during the dinner, like there were questions, but in that moment he's like, whoa, something ain't good here. Like this ain't good anymore. And then her family gives her like that photo album. And like that is another moment where it's just like, she's so happy and like overjoyed. This is a family, like they're really close. And you can see like just in the way this whole scene goes, it's a super close family. But I think all this birthday party was supposed to do was to show kind of the riff. This is the beginning of the end for our boy Patrick. So, Bradley, Nathan.
Yeah, I think the real MVP of this entire scene is a man who commanded about 8 seconds of this entire plot and movie. But it's the granddad who just that innocent, sweet smile makes her a scrapbook. Just great job. Grandpas are the best. And
he's very Uncle Desmond.
Job.
Like
very Uncle Desmond like, just unassuming, but when he comes in strong and very memorable.
For sure.
The only other thing I'd add is that Patrick is very, very successful. He ran 6 miles in 28 minutes. He's qualifying for a triathlon. He's very successful in the things that matter to him. The problem is, what matters a lot less to him now is Lou, who is suddenly the center of Will's world. And so, yeah, you're right. I think you said it best. The rift is tangibly obvious at this thing when you see that Patrick's worshiping fitness, and as great as he's getting there, he's stopped caring at all about his relationship.
And so even after this birthday, like he comes back later and tries to smooth things over, and they just paint him in such a jealous light where you're supposed to not like him, but everything he's saying is justified. Like, I mean, for me, somebody watching it, I'm like, I get it. Like, yeah, he's an idiot. Yeah, he's done some really stupid things, but he's not wrong in how he's feeling about all this.
I'm going to say this, but I'm going to be completely honest. If I have a woman and we are dating and we are in love, and I gave her a heart-shaped Patrick necklace, and then she says, hey, I can't go with you to Norway. I'm going to go and stay in a hotel with this other man, I will be very upset. I would have broken it off or known that it was over. So I agree with you, Mikey. They try really, really hard to paint Patrick in a terrible light. And I love Lou. I think she's wonderful. But you can tell, like, she's just not really being that honest with them. And because I think she should have just cut it off. They just say, hey, it's over. I'm not in. And
I'll say this, though. I'm gonna jump on the other side, though. If Patrick was a great boyfriend and invested in her life, he should have met Will way earlier than this. And he should have been asking questions, should have been like, man, how's this going? I know this is like taking up your world. Instead, he's like, oh, you're going over there? Okay, well, I'll go swim 3 miles. Like, that's all he really cares about. And so what other outcome was there? Since he's not
and I'm not going to fight you on that. I think that you have a lot of truth in that moment. Here's what I will push back on your pushback is that she tells him, hey, I can't go with you. I've got to go on this trip. It infuriates him. Then he comes back to smooth things over and he's like, I get it. You know, this is just a drop in the bucket. It's only for a few more months. Then he sees the itinerary, and she has not been honest about this trip.
You're right. I forgot about the itinerary. You're right. I'll give you that. No, for sure. For sure, I'll give you that.
She like, as much as I want to root for her, that's kind of dirty.
It's just it's an impossible scenario for Patrick. And you're right. Like, he's not been the best. And to be honest, like, he hadn't had to be the best. Like, there was nothing threatening for him to change. And, you know, as soon as he realizes that, it's almost too little too late.
Right.
But, I mean, you're right. Like, Brandon, those shots about it from when, at the dinner table, like, at that point, it's just, I mean, it was painful. Like, I was cringing. Like, this is so hard. It's so hard. And you want to feel like he's a complete jerk, but at the same time, he like, you know, did Lou deserve better than what she had? Sure.
Right.
And it took something like that for Patrick, but it was just a complete spaghetti clump of emotions.
Well, and I'll say this too. I mean, look, Patrick's caught in what I'd like to call a love maze. Not even a circle, just a maze, just lost in his own feelings. Because here's the thing, and I agree, Bradley, man, if you want a woman, you got to get out there and you got to fight for her. And you go tooth and nail and you got to go get her. But I will say this, they don't seem very compatible in terms of, and no one's perfectly compatible. Like, that could be up to, but they just don't seem to like the same things. Yeah. And that can be okay, but at least for me, I'd want to at least enjoy some of the same interest in things. And you could tell they totally had, like, they didn't even, like, he wasn't even self-aware that she didn't give a rip about all his fitness stuff. But yeah, he's lost.
Well, and they do a great job of like showing that too. Like, even when they're at the theater and she's like, let's watch this one. And he laughs at her and says, let's do Will Ferrell. Like, they want you to want him to lose. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
So, and I get that, because that's the kind of movie we're watching, and we've seen most of this plot play out before. So, So they go on the trip. Did we cover that in what he said?
We got right up to it. I think that's the next paragraph.
All right, let's hit it.
During a luxurious trip to the island of Mauritius together, undertaking after another bout with pneumonia and with help from Nathan, Will informs Lou that he still intends to follow through with his assisted suicide. He wants her to live a full life instead of a half a life with him. He says their time together has been special, but he cannot bear to live in a wheelchair. He asks her to accompany him to Switzerland to be with him through his last moments. Heartbroken, she informs Will's parents upon arrival in London that she is quitting immediately and travels back to her home by bus. She does not speak to Will for the days that follow. However, at home, Lou's father convinces her to go to Will. She finds out that he has already left for Switzerland, so she decides to go to Switzerland herself to be with Will in his final moments.
Is there more?
Like 3 sentences.
Read it.
So I want to jump in here.
Okay.
Sorry, the old Candyman wants to just have a point, and I'm gonna show my face here. So there's a scene that they had, and they went to a castle. It's a beautiful scene. They go to this castle, and who doesn't love a castle? And so they go to this castle, and they have this nice time, and it's interesting because he talks about this time in Paris, where he's like, I love going to this one cafe, and the girls would check me out, and all this stuff, and I'm probably getting this out of order, but Lou's like, let's go now. And he said, Lou, I don't want to go there now as I am. I want to go as the really like good looking, like successful man and feel all that, basically power. And it's just amazing. I thought that was incredibly shallow.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, cause he does mention, and I'm going to let you, he says, because they'll have to make room for my wheelchair and there'll be nowhere to plug in. Like, I can see where you're coming from, but he's thinking even logistically, like, but yeah, you're right. So
I just thought especially when he said the point of, and all the young women checking me out, like that really stuck with me of like, cause you are right. Like he does mention the logistics and it is hard. Like I can't imagine what it would be like to go through something like what a horrible thing he's been through, but it is amazing how he really did love his life. And I think in the scene in the beach, that's what he says. He's like, Lou, I love my life. Like, I loved it so much.
Who I was.
I loved who I was. And so I just, those things really stuck with me. And those will have a lot to do with my final thoughts. So I'll quit talking. I'll let you finish it.
Taylor, go ahead and read that last sentence, and then we'll just tie a bow on all of it, because there's going to be no point to just read that and then us, I think, just go ahead and do it all.
So a few weeks after Will's death, sitting in his favorite cafe in Paris, Lou reads the letter Will left for her. In it, he encourages her to seek out a specific perfume shop. He has left her enough money to follow her dreams and ends off the letter with, "Just live."
Okay. So now we're on vacation. So it's a great vacation. They're laying by. I really thought this is because Brandon, I'm glad you brought that up. I would have forgot to mention it. But when he says, I remember the girls checking me out, this, that, and the other, I thought, okay, he's laying in this chair by the pool where he looks just like everyone else. I wonder if they're going to give him a taste of that, or somebody walks by and checks him out, because in this, they didn't. I think that would have been just a solid kind of nod. But they're there. Nathan finds him a lover. It's a great time for all. That night, Lou takes Will to his room. There's a storm. He's like, hey, why don't you not leave? It didn't take much, so she stays. They kind of have, do they kiss here, or is it later? Mm-hmm. Okay, so they have their first kiss here. Then they go out on the beach the next night. Like, everything is coming up Lou. It looks like everything she's been fighting for, she's got it. It's here. She's won him. And it hasn't changed a thing. So I feel like going on the trip, and Bradley, Brandon, or Nathan, you guys might have something to say, but I feel like everything Taylor read, this is where it really picks up. So I don't know if you, whatever you guys want to throw in there.
I'll just say, and Brandon, I kind of took what he said as like the girls checking me out as just like, not so much like I want the girls to check me out like that. I kind of took it as like just simply as my life before, like, because like you said, he's a great dude. He's a rugby player. Like, he's very successful, and I could certainly see where it might seem that way, but I didn't take that far. I think really he loved life before what happened, and he was just very resolute that my life will not be as full as it was once. And I mean, that's just that, like, that conflict, that inner conflict there is, I mean, obviously none of us can relate to that, but it makes it such a, like, makes it really hard to, like, because then ultimately, like, that was the reason why he doesn't want to live. Like, he said he would give 6 months, and he did, and it's on that dock scene where he's like, no, I need to tell you something, and she's like, oh, I know you're planning this whole assisted suicide thing, and he's like, yeah, but I'm still gonna go through with it. And I don't know. I think that's probably the controversial part it is the controversial part for all of us.
Yeah, I'm going to do the hot tag here. Bradley, okay. I'm sure you got a lot to say, but I want to this is where I'm Team Brandon, because I get what you're saying. And, like, I can sympathize with that. Like, I look at this movie for what it is, and, I mean, even if I don't feel the way I feel about how it ended, like, I cannot imagine going through what this man has gone through. I cannot imagine having it all and then feeling like you've lost it. That's something I hope I never have to go through. But as far as Brandon saying selfish, this is where I feel like it's selfish. Why did he why lead her on? Like, he lets her fall in love. And I know that a lot of people are going to be like, they're going to fight me on this, and that's fine. Bring it on. I'll start swinging. But she had a boyfriend. Like, she had, like, as much as we want to give Neville crap, like, she had that. But he kisses her, and he kind of lets her, like, he can see she's fallen. And so I know that he's probably fallen too, and he wants his last days to matter. But I don't know. I just felt like if you've made up your mind that when this 6 months end, that's it. Like nothing is going to change that. Then you shouldn't do this to that girl.
Do you think that he? Can I ask you this? Do you think that he knew all along, like 100% all along, or at that point? See, because the way I kind of took it was at that moment when he realized, because there was one point he's like, "You don't even know the things I would do to you right now if I could move," and like alluding to making sandwiches and stuff.
Right.
And at that moment, do you think that it's possible that he might, in that moment, realize, I will never be able to love this girl like I previously could have, and I don't want to live a life where that's not possible?
I guess that I can see where that's open to interpretation, and I wish I could have seen the movie through that light. But to me, he knew what he was doing from the day that 6 month deadline hit. And so that's why I got you.
I'm not saying he didn't want to do that. I'm just saying I think there's a moment where, like, again, like, what's he gonna do? Like, he can't not, like, he's got to have somebody take care of him.
No,
so she's gonna be around, and I don't think that in his whole, like, I don't think he ever envisioned what happened that would happen.
Right.
And I think in the midst of all that, rather than turn, and I think that's what makes this movie so good, is like in that moment where you would expect him to turn and then, like, okay, I'm going to live this life. It actually, and like this really helpless romantic, I'm not saying I agree with the decision, but I think in this helpless romantic decision, he decides, my life, I can't love her the way that I would like to love her. And even though they probably would have never been together because of all the things they've already talked about, in that moment, my life is not worth living because I can't love her the way that I would have loved her before the accident.
And so it's funny. Yeah. I took it the opposite. I actually took it to where, like, to me, like, I think he cared for her. He really enjoyed her. At the end of the day, like, she could never make his life better. And I almost took it in just the way they spoke to each other, like, man, like if he had never gotten injured, which he wouldn't have, but he would never consider dating a Lou. And she just seemed like kind of the second, kind of the leftover, the opportunity that was there. And yes, he admired her, he enjoyed her, but I don't think he ever took her seriously as someone he would love. And maybe he did feel like he could never love her the way that he could. And maybe there was some guilt there. But it's just amazing how much pain he caused her. He's okay with it. Like, he really is fine with it. And so, I've got more to say about his decision, and I'm definitely going to be on the very extreme. But I really felt like he just treated Lois like a kind of a second best. Like, look, my wife was that blonde girl who married Rupert. Like, that's who that was. And this is something, and I'm going to help you. I'm going to, because he does. I mean, he helps her a lot. I mean, he does a lot to serve her family. So there is some kindness that he shows. But definitely just a different perspective. But it is interesting to be challenged.
What do you think, Bradley?
Yeah, so it sounds like we have a good old fashioned Arkansas versus Nathan and I are taking. I would say, I'm on team. If there are teams, I agree with Nathan here. In this sense, like, I think that he was so closed off. He had made his decision, and then Lou comes into the picture, and slowly but surely she breaks down some walls. And I felt like through all of the ideas she was gathering, the horse racing, the concerts, she was looking up tennis tournaments to go to, different things like that. It was kind of like what I thought earlier of, like, just throw something in a wall. Let's see what happens. And I'm gonna save a few of these things for my final thoughts. But she takes a chance with all these things, and I think throughout the movie you see him taking a chance, and him taking a chance on her, him going out there and dancing with her at the wedding, getting to know her, getting to put in great effort to not just find things that make her happy just in a material standpoint, but I think those bumblebee tights, like, really getting to her heart. And I think taking that vacation, he saw that just the reality of the situation. This vacation with this girl that I've started to get feelings for is the pinnacle of what life is going to be. And in the post-credits of this whole thing, there's going to be struggle. There's going to be a lot of pain and frustration. Ultimately, and this is where you can't answer this question, but this is kind of the perspective I saw in the rose-colored lens. Is like he saw that her whole life would now be about me. If this whole thing was going to be going forward, that she would want to take care of me, she would want to make all these things happen for me. When he alludes to so many times, you have potential, you got to get out of this town, you got to spread your wings and do some stuff. And if I'm here in the picture, which is it gives me shivers thinking like if I'm alive in the picture, that's not going to happen. And so for many reasons, but that included, I'm still sticking with the decision I made. Even though I gave it a chance, I'm standing firm on going to Switzerland. And that's kind of how I took it is if I'm here, your life can't flourish the way it's supposed to, which is hard.
So I do want to say, like, I can see that. I can see that perspective. I wish I could have watched that. I think I got so hung up, like how I feel, I'm not going to be able to turn that off. Sometimes I just stay with this because I want to fight. But I can't unsee the movie I saw. And so I see where y'all are coming from, and that makes sense. But I think I'm just kind of stuck in my ways on this one. Because so they leave. Let's go ahead and finish so we can get, because I know everybody just wants to talk about their final thoughts at this point. So they leave, they go home. She realizes it's done. Like, there's nothing I'm ever going to be able to do. She goes home. Her mom can't understand how his parents and he could feel this way. But her dad says, hey, like, we can get you to him if you want to go. So she goes. She's there with him in that last moment. And then it's what Taylor said, where she goes to Paris, kind of what Brandon alluded to all the places he loved, reads a note from him where he says, hey, I'm going to take care of you, and live your life. Just live the life that I couldn't, basically. And does anybody got anything else? Because I can't remember if I'm missing anything.
I did think that there was a really cool line. Her dad, Lou's dad, said, you can't change who people are. And then she was just crying. She said, what do you do? And she said, you love them. You just love them. Mm-hmm. And that's ultimately where that kind of got her to go to Switzerland to be with him. But yeah, I mean, it just ends. It ends like it ends. I mean, that's.
It's just so heavy. It's just so heavy. Anybody else got anything about that scene with him in Switzerland or the Paris scene?
He did say just the financial specific. He was like, I didn't leave you enough to sit on your bum for the rest of your life, but I did get you enough to start living, whatever. And I thought that was a cool touch. Like, he does want her to live and live to the fullest. And man, the ending does not. It just leaves you so just feeling so many things. So
it does. It does. Raymond?
I did like what her dad said to Lou about, you just love people because I really think that I know that I've felt like, wow, I could really change somebody or change someone's mind or change their actions. And you really can't at the end of the day. And that's not your burden to bear. But because I thought Lou was so selfless throughout this movie. It was really kind, especially with Will. And even when she went, and probably partially for closure for herself, but I think because she really cared about him. And that I do love. Like, I love selflessness is something that I love to see in people. And I saw that in her in a lot of the parts in the movie.
All right. I think we've done it. So we can jump into our finals. And I'll go first because I feel like I need to say what I need to say. And then I want to see if what you guys say, because I've heard what you're saying and it's made me kind of rethink, but I couldn't get past it. So I'll go first. My favorite character in the movie, and there were a lot of good ones. There really wasn't a bad character as far as character development, but I loved Nathan the nurse. Just that steady guy, man. Like he knew everything that was going to happen all along, but he was just he was there to love on this dude. And he just they never let emotions make that character anything other than what he needed to be. He was just that solid dude. And I loved that. The unsung hero, man, I went, Patrick. I just feel like that dude got a raw deal in all this. Like, he loved her. He wanted to he wanted everything he wanted for sure, but he saw the writing on the wall and there was nothing he could do about it. And that itinerary scene was straight Notebook to me. I just felt like this dude is getting played and it's just not fair. And so as much of a to
his own doing though, he got to that point because it was
for sure. Yeah. But I think he should have. He wanted to fight. He did, or he wouldn't have came back to the house. And I think had we known how this was all going to go, he should have gotten that opportunity. And so to me, that dude is the unsung hero of this movie. My final thoughts. I thoroughly enjoyed 90% of this movie. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really good. It was a kind of a new take on things that we watch. I've never had a final scene of a movie kind of kill a whole movie for me like this one did. And it was just from the end of that beach on. And I could not come back from it. Like, it bothered me that much. I told you that through the whole movie, I was trying to figure out what Me Before You was. And I thought it was he gives up on them before they can give up on him, or she didn't know who she was till she met him. But when it ended, I realized to me that Me Before You means how I feel, how he felt, Will felt, is always going to trump how everybody else feels. It's always going to be me first. And for me, I can't live if I can't be who I was. And that to me was just the most selfish thing in the world. I get what you guys are saying. I empathize with all of it. I feel for him. But like Bradley, I think at one point you said he might have realized on that beach, like, this is as good as it can get. But he doesn't know that. Like, that dude had so much money and this girl was falling for him so hard. They could have lived a lifetime of trips like that. Like, that wasn't as good as it was going to get. He could have went 6 more months or 6 more years. Like, he was finally happy. So for him to say, I need to end it while I'm happy, to me, that's a no. Like, keep being happy. There's no point in it. So it bothered me so much. I just could not get around it. I know that life isn't always fair. But I thought that he just needed to fight, because he had something worth fighting for. And they built it up an entire movie. So through the whole movie, I would have given this 4 stars or 4 tats. But by the end, like, I can't go above a 1. Like, it tanked it so hard for me.
Whoa.
I couldn't. Yeah. I hated this ending so much that it killed the whole movie for me. It did. And I couldn't come back from it. So that's me. And I get where people might want to fight, but I did not see it coming. And when it came, it just bothered me so much. I was like, man, this just doesn't feel right to me. And so that's, I get it, but that's where I'm in.
Wow. Okay. So I'll go, I'll just, there's a couple things that I just want to kind of rebut to you, Mikey.
Uh-huh.
You said he was happy.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I push back. I don't know that
if he wasn't happy, he's a bald-faced liar. Because he sure looked it.
But like, that was his. I think it's silly to think that his life was going to always be taking these awesome trips. Like, he was happy in a sense that, like, in that moment, but the reality was his life wasn't gonna be like puppy dogs and rainbows.
Right. It's never gonna be what it was, for sure.
So that was my first thing. I don't know that he was happy. I mean, I think in that moment he certainly was. I think he's also incredibly sad because he couldn't enjoy what was happening like he would have before the accident. So it's interesting. I took Me Before You from the mindset of almost like wishful thinking. Like, I wish I was the me that I was before you, like before I knew you. And so that's kind of the realm, like, that's where I was thinking the title was. Like, I'm not the me I was before you. And so I can never be that me. Which is just, I'm so fascinated with the way that the way that we're on opposite ends of this. And I think that's what makes me appreciate the movie really well. I'll say my favorite character was Will. I think just as far as like development, I mean, you're right. Nathan was a cool character. I think I'm sure somebody's going to say Lou, somebody's going to say the mom and dad, and like, I'm not going to disagree at all. I just loved the journey that we went on with Will. I loved watching him open up. As far as the comps, you know, it obviously had this bucket list feel to it. This Morgan Freeman and just going to do and Jack Nicholson going to do these crazy things when you know the end's in sight. I'll even say at the end of the movie, P.S. I love you, like the letter feel. He wanted her to experience life, and I only gave her one letter, but it's a little bit different. The third movie, and I don't know if you all have seen this, The Fault in Our Stars. Have you seen that with
I've heard
the girl
of
from Divergent and I don't know who the guy is actually. I can't think of it. Basically, they're both like terminally ill patients fall in love with each other, and so this whole idea that like there is an end, but let's live it to the fullest until that end. I got the same sense from this, even though Will was choosing to end rather than like his life being taken for cancer or whatever. Those three are the ones that I kind of came up with. And then, I'll say probably I would give this movie like a 4.5. Like I really liked it, and I think there's something, Dave said something in the previous one, when a movie gets you to feel a certain way and like makes you want to go do something, like it invokes in you something. I just think it's really interesting the way that it's cast all four of us on kind of different places.
And so that's why I'd like to, before you finish, I do want to say, like, when I gave it the 1, I am acting on pure emotion right now because I have just seen this movie. I've seen it once. I got really hung up on that. If I watch it again a couple months from now, who knows? But in this moment, that's just where I'm at. So
it was just shocking. It was shocking because that 10% of the movie could ruin a really good movie.
And I've never seen one like that.
Which is fine. Again, I'm gonna go 4.5. And I think as far as my final thoughts, like there's so many, like this is just. I kept writing down, I kept saying to Claudia, this is an impossible situation. Like, Patrick's in an impossible situation. The parents are in an impossible situation. How do you show support for your son wanting to end a life for him that he never wanted? Like, it's just so difficult and so hard to wrap your mind. I think, Brandon, even you said it, like, none of us, we've never been in a situation like that. How can we even make a decision? I just think it's a look at an extremely difficult situation, and you just, like, at the end of it, I'm just thinking, like, ethically, and all these things are, like, there's so many things conflicting and colliding inside of me that this movie made those so, like, it's a movie, and it made me feel all these things. I appreciate that about the movie. Just a couple of, I did some research on this, and a couple of, so the woman who wrote the book, she actually had 2 people in her family who had someone who needed 24-hour care, and so that kind of was part of her inspiration behind this. The other was a headline from a news story that she read where, like, a rugby player had an accident like this, and this thing played out for him. So she he wanted to commit, he wanted to have the assisted suicide and went through with it, and that was the headline that she wrote. So it was kind of those two things colliding together. She wrote the book, which I thought was very interesting because I just wondered, it was just so many things about it were so specific that it was just interesting to me to see how they made that so real. But 4.5. I really enjoyed the movie. Although it made me really ethically confused.
Right. I also heard that this was a trilogy, and I don't know how that could. There was one, and I may butcher this, but I think it was called Before You, and then Me Before You, and then After You. And so I mean, I'm intrigued of how the After You, like, I'm very intrigued by that. I'll be honest, but I would have never thought that. So, crazy. Who's next?
Yeah, I'll go. I'm excited. I want Brandon to close this out. I'm excited to hear what he has to say. We found a movie he's very passionate about, so I'm excited. You brought some great points, Brandon, for real. I think one of the things, starting from almost the beginning of their relationship, I wouldn't call what Lou does to Will tough love, but I would say and maybe it is, but the phrase I thought was she's bringing hope, but it's tough hope. Like she is blunt, she's honest, but she realizes maybe her purpose in all this and her purpose that in who she is to bring hope to this guy who is on a crash course. I mean, just to be honest, for death unless something changes. And so you just see that she's not trying to be perfect in it, but like I keep saying, like it's in like let's get through it together. Let's grind through this. And in a situation like this where you have limitations, you have difficulties, I feel like everything's magnified. Like the difficulty of eating food, the difficulty of getting bathed and changing and laying in a bed, but also the great moments, the opening a window and seeing the outside, the appreciation and the magnitude you have for those moments is also there. So the lows are magnified, but the stuff that does stick, it's so rich and full of life. It just proves that life is meant to be lived. And none, like you said earlier, Mikey, none of us are dealt a fair hand. We all have things out of our control, but what you do with it is so important. And what Lou does with it is incredible up to this point. And so I think, I think two things can be true. I don't agree with Will's decision. I don't, but I also think his thoughts for Lou were selfless, and what he did post Switzerland was a very loving thing, and it was almost a launching ramp for Lou to be herself, to realize her dreams, and to pursue those wholeheartedly. And so I do think those two things can be true. A couple of quick things. I thought it had a killer soundtrack. Also, I have to correct myself. Perfect by Ed Sheeran was my first dance song. Not doing so bad. If you're listening, I love you. I know our first dance song. Ed Sheeran is just a wizard at everything he does. Anyway.
Yes. Well said, Bradley.
Yeah. Killer soundtrack. My favorite character was Nathan. Mikey, I echo all the things you said. I would only add this. I think he's kind of the one character we can figure out from beginning to end. That he's steady, he's there. I know what I'm getting, and I'm thankful for what I'm getting. And so he's simply loyal. And so I love that. At one point, and I can't remember if it was in a later part of the movie, Will looks at Lou and says, "You need to go. The world is a better place with you in it." And she says, "Well, you too." And he's like, "No, not me." But that I just think is so true, and that the world was a better place because Will was in it. Because there's people like Lou, Brandon, like you said, that are positive, that are selfless, that he is helping her flourish. So the world is better with him in it. And so for the more guy-friendly, quote unquote, like I would just say he lives. I would say that he lives. Not to step into Nathan's turf, but the comp that kept coming to my mind was this movie that came out in 2017 called The Upside with Kevin Hart and somebody else, and you guys probably need to watch that one too. It's a non-romantic. Kevin Hart's the caretaker of a quadriplegic, and he shows him. It's funny, but it's really deep and good. But he makes a different choice. I don't know if he does the assisted suicide stuff, but he decides to flourish with the rest of his life with them, and so it's interesting. And knowing that, I watched that with my wife last year, and now watching this, and just such a different turn at the end. And yet I'm felt with warm feelings for Lou, and that note just sends her off, and she's wearing those bumblebee tights, and it's just so warm. But then at the same time, it's like, wow, he went through with it, and he's no longer there. And yet he feels like he's there, and he made this decision, but at the same time, so I'm just so conflicted. But I go back to two things can be true. I would vehemently disagree with the choice of Will, but I also think it was a very selfless thing in the big picture for Lou's life. But there's so many things that are intertwining. I don't think there's obviously no black or white decision. So all that being said, I gave it 4.2 butterfly tattoos. I think it's really good. I would recommend people to see it just to think about it and to talk about it, really wrestle with some things. I don't know if it's a movie I can just like periodically watch over and over again because of that ending, Mikey. I'm not going to leave this movie feeling incredible. And so I thought it was really good. The acting was awesome. The storytelling, amazing. The ending makes you feel things. So I would recommend it. So good. I don't think I'll watch it a second time. So 4.2. That's where I'd leave it.
And here we go, folks. The Wizard of
Love. The Wizard of Love. So, man, y'all have done such a great job explaining all of your points of view. And I think this may make me a little bit more compassionate, although I'm definitely very extreme in how I view the end of this movie. But I want to make sure that I explain this really, really well. because I have never in a million years experienced, like we've all experienced trials and setbacks and disappointments, but I can't imagine not being able to use any part of my body other than my neck. I mean, to think that you were like an all-star, like just attractive and an incredible businessman and truly happy, like so happy with what you've been given and what you've accomplished, and you just happen to have it all taken away. I can't imagine how horrible that would be. That'd be so sad. I mean, it just would be soul crushing, and it is for Will in this movie. Some things I love about this movie, I love the soundtrack. It's so fun. I love pop music. I love dance music. So and I like Ed Sheeran. Wonderful. I love the castles. I like Europe, even though I've never been. I want to check out Britain and Ireland and some of those places at some point in my life. I hope to get to do that someday. This movie hits home for me a little bit. Just with, it does. It does. Like just when you're going through his emotions and his challenges. Again, I've never faced anything that he's faced in terms of the physicality. But I want to talk a little bit before I go into just his decision. Lou, I love that character. I think she's so incredible. Like she's so happy and positive and just she has joy. And I think we live in a time where it's very hard to find. I just remember whenever I'd see her smile, I've joked a lot about the red dress and I probably hit that too hard, but what I really loved was her genuine smile. And just, you could tell like she had just such a sweet kindness. She was a really sweet soul. It's
your favorite?
She is my favorite. Lou is definitely my favorite. I was a big fan just because of her personality. She really had a true sense of joy. When I go to Will, like I think he's an incredible character. He's incredibly well developed. He's very complex. I don't consider myself always a super strong and confident man, and I love to see men who carry themselves really, really well. And you could tell, like, he just had a very calm nature about him. The way he answered Lou was so well done. Like, I loved their kind of banter back and forth. And even he was so wise in some of the things that he said. And I really appreciated that. For me, I thought his decision to take his own life was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking to me. And I think in some ways, I think the movie wanted to redeem that. And I totally understand like some of the positives, but I think that sometimes even in the worst of moments, even when things that are just unimaginably terrible, there's so much honor and courage in living. I think living, like there's a few instances in time where dying was harder than living. But I think there's so many moments where actually living is way harder than dying and giving up your life, but you do it because of the people in your life. And when I look at my mom and my dad, I can never stop living because I want them to be happy, even if I'm not happy. And for Lou, I don't know if I'd marry or not. I mean, maybe, but at the very end of the day, I'd want, like, if I know that I'm going to cause her that much pain and I'm okay being miserable, even if it's really hard in this life, if that means if I can provide happiness for others, I mean, just, that's really hard. It's really hard. And maybe I wouldn't think that way. Maybe I'd be totally dead wrong. I could be, but I think those are the moments where life is terrible and you probably don't have a great life ahead, but you do it because of the other people that you love so much. And that's where that true love and selflessness could have gone the distance for Will. And so I think this is an incredible movie. I'm going to give it a 0 butterfly tattoos because it bothered me so much, because I think it tried to glorify something that I view is never okay. And again, I know if anybody's listened to this and they've either gone through what he's gone through, and that's very high. We don't have that many listeners. Or if like that, this is not to minimize like suicide or assisted suicide or depression, because it's so hard. It is like, it's so hard in those moments where you really feel like life is not worth living. But man, it is, even if it's not for yourself, even if it's for somebody else. So this was an incredible movie. I give it 0. I don't have a song. I can't.
Yeah, I wouldn't make you do that on this.
Yeah, I can't do that. So anyway, I will just close. But this really was a good movie, and I'm giving an extreme because of just the stance of the decision. But it was an incredible film, and I would love to, I've loved hearing Nathan and Bradley, your thoughts.
For sure.
because I'm so black. I'm a very black and white person, and I can be that way. So it's been interesting just to hear different perspectives, especially from some guys that I just so respect your wisdom and your insight. So I'm done. I'm going to quit talking, and I'm going to hand it over to somebody else.
Dude, that was very well said, Brandon.
Yeah, very good.
Very well said.
So Taylor, who did not see this movie, as someone who has just heard everything we've talked about, is this a movie you'd want to see?
I'm kind of leaning towards wanting to see it, mostly because I think you all have described in different ways Mikey's final thoughts, which summed up that he loved 90% of the movie, and the last 10 was really, or less, was really about the decision, but not necessarily about the issue wasn't how it was done. In terms of the filmmaking, the issue wasn't that it was bad filmmaking at the end. We're just talking about the storyline and how that eats you up and that. And I think that's really intriguing. And the story between the two sounds pretty wonderful. So I'm leaning towards watching it.
There you have it. We won somebody over. There have been a lot of people that have asked us to do this one. I am curious what you think when you hear it. So please let us know, whether that's on Instagram, on Twitter, send us a message, a YouTube comment, whatever. Because, I mean, I want to know what you people think of this movie. This is one where I want to see, like, we've said what we think. I want to hear what you have to say, because it's a very, I mean, it's down the middle. Like, it feels like it's a very gray what you think. And so I'd be curious to whether you read the book or the movie or whatever. I just want to hear other people's thoughts. But yeah, we did it, y'all. We did it. Super hilarious episode.
Man,
I'll be honest. I just want to go downstairs and drown myself in marshmallows and Nutella. Sweet mercy.
That was heavy, man. That was heavy.
Well, there you have it, folks. This has been a Talk to Remember. We're all going to remember this movie, and we hope you remember the talk too. All right. Bye.
For romance, somehow these dudes are our only hope.
I hope you do not remember the movie, but you know to talk. Bye.